Hey guys, this is Bruce. Welcome to ConvoCourses podcast. And today I have the honor of speaking with Will Reed, who is an entrepreneur, a cybersecurity coach, a speaker, and he's the host of Tech in Motion podcast. He's the CEO of BetterEverydayCyber.com. Please introduce yourself, sir. It's an honor for me. I'm glad I got to meet you. I have so many questions that I want to ask, and I want to learn from you as well. So please introduce yourself and talk to us about your business.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Bruce. And just before I get rolling, I just want to say the honor's all mine. I've been following you for a while. And like we mentioned before, you're one of the resources that I found when I was just breaking into pure GRC work, and all of the tools, all of the talks, YouTube videos that you had out there were really a blessing to me. So I just want to thank you in front of your audience as well, just like I did to you when we first jumped on. So a little bit about myself. I don't know if I could do much better than Bruce did, but so I'm an Army veteran, 20 years in the Army, similar background on the military side to Bruce. And I ended up breaking into cyber while I was in. I was an IT services manager. And what I did was part of my role was to be an IT director as well. And I managed all aspects of IT. And part of that was information assurance, is what we called it in the military. And that was my initial break into cybersecurity. Once I retired, I ended up going to a purely cybersecurity GRC role with the TSA, supporting a TSA contract, doing compliance work. And then I did the same thing for the Secret Service, and then eventually broke into the private sector, supporting small and mid-sized businesses. And then from there, ended up starting my own company. So that's it, long and short of it.
Wow. Yeah, I've been looking through your resume, man. I checked out your LinkedIn, and I'm like, damn, okay. I'm about to get outshined on this one.
Oh,
Is
no,
it-
it looks a lot more sexy than it really was. You start
Yeah.
saying things like Secret Service, and they're thinking I'm like hiding behind the president and working on his information systems and all that. I wasn't doing that. I was doing paperwork, man.
And for you guys who are looking for, I get questions all the time about people wanting to have me as a coach or a mentor, and I just don't have time to do it. But Will Reed does. So his link is in the description below. Go check out his services. And my first question, you're really strong in security management. And my question is, for us who are aspiring to get into that role, what are some of the skills that you need to do information security management work?
Yeah, great question. I believe that one of the first and foremost things you got to have is great communication skills, because when you're doing security management and it's not as deeply technical as some of the other IT roles out there, especially when you start talking about like security engineer, where you're deep into configurations on a firewall or a router or a switch or something like that. Security management is more about the bigger picture and making sure all of the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, looking at your entire security program as a whole, and then managing the different aspects of it. And so communication is very key. Because you're not hands-on, you have to negotiate, you have to talk, you have to communicate with other stakeholders that are actually doing the work, number one. And then number two, communicating with the C-suite and the executives that are actually running the business or running the organization. So being able to translate tech speak to business speak from a communication perspective is very key. I'll say number one. Number two, as a security manager, is having the skills to be able to run multiple different projects at the same time, and be able to keep schedules, keep things on a good time, make sure that everybody that needs to be in communication is talking, bringing people in. I love last week when you started talking about this, when you were talking about configuration management and looking at project management. So a lot of this security management, project management is a big piece of it, bringing the full picture together and making sure your projects, all the different tasks and responsibilities and everybody that's involved is all singing the same song. So I'll say those two big things. And then the last thing I'll say is just looking at things in layers. So when you're looking at security, you're not just looking at one aspect of security, like physical or just network security. You're looking at what we used to call defense in depth. Now we're starting to go a little bit deeper, to go into zero trust. But ultimately, it's looking at all the different aspects of security, from even the personnel side when you're looking at security awareness and people clicking on the wrong things in their emails. So understanding security in layers is the last thing I'll bring about. So understanding how to communicate those different risks, how to manage those different technologies, and then how to leverage your communication skills between different stakeholders, talking about different technologies are the key things that I would highlight.
I love what you said about defense in depth and looking at the big picture. That's so true. But I know as a manager, one of the things you have to deal with is difficult people. And that's been one of my challenges. Every department, every agency, every place I've been to, I have to deal with either it's a coworker
Hmm.
or it's a peer or it's a C-level exec, it's a manager, it's sometimes it's the customer.
Yeah.
How do you deal with difficult people? This is a question I get on almost every interview, and if they don't bring it up, I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with it?
That's an excellent question, Bruce. And really, it comes to having what I call like just emotional intelligence, both of yourself and of other people's. And when I say that emotional intelligence for yourself, number one is understanding what triggers you when it comes to communication. One of the things that I found was, and I'll give you just a quick backstory when I was in the military. So I was deployed, I was in Afghanistan, and I was the IT services director, IT manager over for our section.
What year
And
were you there?
so Afghanistan, I was 2014 through 2016,
Okay,
two
okay.
separate deployments.
All
But
right.
but yeah, it was 2014 to 2016 is when I was in Afghanistan.
Okay.
As part of my role, I managed the primary help desk for our systems, but we also had to leverage third parties. Like, for example, the DIA was managing a portion of our network. And so they were the primary responders for things. We would do the initial kind of just real quick triage. But if we couldn't handle anything, just, it was really minor stuff. We were really just the ones that got on the phone with them. Hey, you need to come down here and fix this. I was out. I actually got notified the day before that there was a major system that we were also supporting, or that we were potentially going to have to support. And I was going to do a recon with the actual manager of that site to see if we could help them out. And so while I was gone, that network that the DIA supported went down completely. So this network also controlled an email platform as well. When I got back, I walked in and they were like, hey, like the boss needs to see you. So I go in there and he's like, where are you? It's like I was doing exactly what you told me to do. I was going to make sure that we could figure out how we needed to support that other site. He is the JWix is down. Yes, I understand. DIA, I saw the rep. He's walking around trying to make sure that everything is right. And he's trying to get a gauge of the situation. So I know they're working on it. He's like, where were you? It's like, again, I was out, and this is where you're familiar with Afghanistan. A lot of
Yeah.
people, you just don't have your own vehicle. A lot of times, you just have to walk
Yeah.
places. So
Yeah.
I had to walk about a mile or 2 mile and a half down the road in order to get to where I needed to go. So it took me a while to get there and a while to get back. And he was like, "What? Why were you gone so long?" I was like, "I had to walk." And he's like, "Oh, we got a vehicle." Like, I didn't know that. Matter of fact, I ended up getting there. This is probably like a week after I got there. They got there a little bit ahead of me. And so I had one of my guys that was the lead on there. So he was managing things. And so when I got there, this is about a week later. I didn't know there was a vehicle on standby that could have been
Right,
used.
right, right.
So I was like, okay, hey, I'll take that. But he was like, yeah, like I couldn't send this email. I was like, I'm tracking, but if I was here, we would still have this problem right now. I promise you, because I don't manage this network. The DIA person who is actually here, they manage it. But yeah, he was like, yeah, get the F out of my office. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. So if anybody knows the military, I was in the military. If anybody knows the
Yeah.
military, that's
Yeah. Army
profanity is the first language. The second
oh
language
yeah.
is English, right? So that experience taught me and it conditioned me to really be a stickler for things that are under my control. If you're going to hold me accountable for something, hold me accountable for the things that are under my control. So anytime there is an issue where it involves somebody else, then I'm going to be like, okay, let's identify whose responsibility that is. And I will help you get in contact with this person. We can work through this. But when that's a trigger for me. So I know if that happens to me,
Yes.
I'll get hot initially. And so knowing that about myself, I have to
Right,
really
right,
take
right.
a pause, count to three. I just realized, okay, they really don't know whose responsibility is. And because I'm the initial point of contact, I'm going to
Yeah.
get all the heat rounds right out the gate. So that's understanding that about myself. And then understanding
Yes.
people from an emotional perspective. When things go wrong and you can't do the things that you normally can do on your system, on your computer, on your devices, it's
Amen.
frustrating. So
Yes.
when people come to us, and especially when you're in an IT role or you're in a security role, talking about incident management, when there's an incident that happens and now you found a ransomware note, like people are
Yes.
going to panic. And then when
Yes.
people panic, they get emotional. And when they get emotional, all of the different filters that they did have where they would input
Gone.
niceness and they would input empathy and all of that stuff, that goes out the window and it's full panic mode. The house is on fire. Grab everything, women and children, throw everybody out the house, run out, and then go screaming and then call for help. So
Yes.
understanding that when people are in trouble, when people are confused, when they can't do what they want to do, when they can't do what they normally can do, then they're going to be emotional about it. So dealing with people, I think number one is emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nailed it. It's that emotional intelligence for knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, just like you said, to summarize, and then knowing how people are going to respond. Know thyself. And you've got to be true with yourself. To thine own self be true. I think this
Yeah,
Shakespeare said that. It's super important in cybersecurity, and I don't think people talk about it enough. Because it's been the most difficult part. The technical part is I just have enough exposure to where I can figure it out. But the
right.
emotional aspect of it has been very challenging. It's just like you said, what I've done to center myself, just like yourself, is just to know myself and know what triggers me and then calm myself down because it happens. You get in a meeting, it happens, and you just gotta
Mhm.
calm that's coming. Or if it does, you to make an adjustment emotionally.
Yeah, that's
Um,
and that gets into the art versus the science. Like the
yeah,
technology, all of the policies, the frameworks, all the legalities, all the regulations that you have to abide by. That's the science. That stuff is really
yes,
pretty cut and dry when it comes down. It might be deeply technical. It might take a while to understand, but that
yes,
stuff it either works or it doesn't work. It's either a policy or it's not a policy. It's either a requirement or it's not a requirement. The art comes into how you then negotiate how a business feels and reputation, and when it comes to like how this event is affecting the norm, and then
yes.
understanding how to deal with different types of personalities. Again, like
Oh
I'll
my
refer back
goodness.
to last
Yes.
week when you're talking about technical people, it's the ones and the zeros. It's all the
Yes.
this is what it is. This is the server. This is the
Yes.
database. Active Directory is down and all that. I can't talk in that language when I go to the business. When I start talking to
Yes.
them technically, then they're going to get frustrated, and that's going to cause us to have a disconnect when it comes to communication. So the
Exactly.
science is being able to translate that in a way for the business to actually make sense of things.
Absolutely. Nailed it. Nailed